Oh, okay. Well, we do. We have so many, a lot of things going on today, and it's an inauspicious beginning of the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We'll try to get all of that stuff fixed, and we'll get things lumbering under our own weight. It is Friday. It is June 28th, 2024. It's episode 601 of these proceedings. It is Locks for Trump Day 118, and considering what happened last night, there might not be very many Locks for Trump days left, as I have made a commitment to grow my hair until we have a new president of the United States of America, or at very least a new president-elect. And given what we all saw last night, that might be coming sooner rather than later. We will discuss. We'll get your reaction. The only guest we have is our typical visit with Jay St. Clair on Friday, which I think is very important because in the midst of what happened last night at the United States, the debate, for what it was worth, you have the United States Supreme Court issuing a number of decisions, several of which are of very much importance to the manner in which we are governed by our elected officials. And I think it's very important that we go over some of those things with Jay St. Clair today. Plus, he'll answer any and all of your legal questions as you bring them in at 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. You can super text us at your leisure. Membersnutrition.com super text line is up and running. And you can also give us a call. And especially on a First Amendment Freestyle Friday, I would love to hear from you and get your reaction from the debate last evening. Obviously, it was... Well, I don't know which way to go. I'll be honest. I am happy and I'm not. I am pleased that the American public saw on full display what we have known for some time now, and that is that Joe Biden is not calling the shots in the White House. He is not running the country. He is not the leader of the free world. Someone else is. There is zero chance that person that we saw on stage last night is making the decisions about the direction of the government of the United States of America, be it foreign policy or domestic. There is zero shot that individual, that by stealing it or by taking it or however he did it in 2020, there's zero chance that he's been the decision maker for some time now. And frankly, that should scare all of us. I don't mean to ruin the party. I'm not trying to, put a turd in the punch bowl here. But there are serious matters to be taken care of between now and next January. And we don't have an elected leader. We have someone calling the shots. We have someone making the decisions. But it's not that guy. I don't know that he could have made an order at the Waffle House if they had asked him to do so last evening as he stopped by one and then said goodnight to North Carolina despite the fact that he was in Atlanta, Georgia.
You want to see my temper? Keep going.
Well, I'm going to keep going, Mr. President, all day long. That guy that just said that made a little bit of sense. The guy last night did not.
Mr. Wise Guy over here.
So we'll break it down for you throughout the course of the day. We will talk about what this means for the United States of America. We'll talk about what it means for the election prospects of Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and who, if anyone, would be the person that they would slip in there if it is decided by the Democrats that Joe Biden simply cannot function. Now, he's at an event right now, Bell. If you have the ability to call this up, Jill Biden is preparing to introduce this dude. He's at a rally in Raleigh, North Carolina. It says 1:08 in the p.m. Eastern time, which indicates to me that this is a live feed from the aforementioned CNN. So go to whatever channel you need to get to, because I'm hopeful that I'm hopeful that we can get a feed on this live and we can carry this, because there is zero chance that the powers that be around Joe Biden think that this went well last evening. I don't think Joe Biden knows what is well and what is not well, what is good and what is not good. After all, the guy had a cold, everybody. Come on. Guy had a cold. Had a cold. I mean, he only had 9 days to prepare. Come on. What, you expect him to actually prepare a closing statement that makes sense? So, right now, are you watching this? This is amazing. Right now, Joe Biden is standing behind Jill Biden, who's talking, and he's just staring at her blankly. If they've got the feed up, see if this feed's up right now. Oh, boy. Yeah, we're going to, lady. We're going to. I just want to see what he says.
Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Oh, sorry, that's you. I didn't know what that was. We beat Medicare. Watch the spin. Come on. Yeah. Lie. Oh, goodness me. You know what? Could she be the replacement? I bet she might be the replacement. This is amazing that she's speaking and Joe is just standing there with his mouth half open. This is incredible. They know he can't do it. Why doesn't he tell us, lady? This is amazing. This is an admission right here.
This really comes off like they're trying to minimize his speaking time.
Well, yeah, of course they are. And he's just standing there, and he looks around. If you're watching me on Super Talk TV, I'll try to recreate it. Unbelievable. I am, all right, pull her down for the time being. We're going to monitor this, and as Joe comes to the microphone, as she introduces him, for what it's worth, we will play a little bit of it for you. Her voice is pretty bad, but I'm wondering if she might not be the replacement theory. So I've been telling you for several weeks now my Biden replacement theory, and it's pretty simple. The only reason that the powers that be, if you agree with me that Joe Biden's not making the decisions, and I don't know anyone that would disagree with that, even the most ardent liberal would recognize that Joe Biden does not have the ability to make decisions about the future direction of the United States of America, be it good or bad. Even if you wanted to create a socialist nation out of the United States of America, Joe Biden couldn't do it. Joe Biden couldn't find his butt with a flashlight and a compass. So if you, like me, believe in this concept of the Biden replacement theory, which I've been promoting, that the only reason they had this debate last night as early as they had it was to see whether or not Joe Biden could manage himself on a stage for 90 minutes without notes and without assistance. And he obviously cannot. I'll tell you this, there was a big question as to whether or not it would be hopped up Joe or low-key Joe, regular Joe or caffeinated Joe or steroid Joe or whatever it might be. It must have been decided, and this is my take on it, it must have been decided somewhere along the way that they either felt like Joe Biden could manage to do it on its own. Maybe they felt like that the Joe Biden that we saw at the State of the Union address would not work in a room without people, would not work in a setting with only two moderators. And so they decided to do it on his own.
Yeah, he clearly did not drink a meth daiquiri like he did before the State of the Union.
I mean, you could tell from the moment that he waddled out on stage that he was not there. He was not with it. And they can talk all they want to about him having a cold. It is nonsense.
Even as he's walking out to get to the podium, there's this one little point where he sort of raises his hand and points like, is that where I'm supposed to go?
And he's in a room by himself with two moderators and Donald Trump. I mean, it's just amazing. It's amazing how little he seems to understand about where he is. in moments where there was a split screen, obviously he had no idea that there was a split screen going on, or maybe he did and was unable to care. You know, when there's a split screen and Joe was talking, Donald Trump would sit there and occasionally he'd squint, he'd purse his lips, he'd do this or that or the other thing. Joe Biden's just staring blankly. 0421 says Joe had notes. Joe had a notepad and a pen, so Joe could make notes. But Joe did not start with notes. If he did start with notes, it was mumbling and bumbling and incoherent nonsense. I mean, you know something's going on in America, right? You know something big is happening in the midst of our watch party. And by the way, thank you all. Hop Springs, what a great location. What a great group of people. A week, maybe. We announced this watch party on the day that Joe Biden went into seclusion to prepare for this debate. So we only had about a 7-day lead time for you to gather together in Murfreesboro, and it was such a fun time. Hail, hail, most of the gang there. I was there. Chris Hand was there. Brian Wilson, of course, doing his entire show. Dan Mandis, Ken Weaver, Johnny B. Apparently, Dan Mandis' crew loves him because their crew showed up. Part of my crew loves me because Jay Harp was there. He got out of here and boogied his way down to Murfreesboro. Bell K was somewhere not near Murfreesboro. So there was that.
Newcomers. The tradition of Festivus begins with the airing of grievances.
Yeah, there we go.
I got a lot of problems with you people. Now you're going to hear about it.
A lot of people asked about you, Bell, by the way.
Well, I got a lot of problems with you people, and if I'd been there, you'd have heard about them.
Well, a lot of people wanted to know if you were okay. They wanted to know how everything was going with Spicy, your emotional support Cobra. I thought I could be so bold as to tell them that everything was going just fine with Spicy.
The snake is wonderful as always.
And
keep her fed, and she's happy.
Yeah. So let's see. Let me get the pleasantries out of the way because I'm ahead of myself. Joe Biden got me off my game there because I thought he was going to speak, but it was Jill. Oh, here he goes. Here we go. Here we go. I want some of this. I want some of this. I want some of this. Let's see. I had 2 hamburgers, made poopy. Maybe it was too late at night for Joe. He seems more jacked up this morning. Oh, yeah. If Joe says a word that's legible, they cheer. Oh, he's got a protester already. He's got a protester, and these minions know what to do when the protesters pop up, and Joe just stands there. Yeah, well, there we go. All right, if Joe says anything of consequence, we'll let you know. He certainly did not say anything of consequence last evening at the debate. So 90 minutes of nonsense. What are your thoughts? Where do we go from here? It's all on the table on the First Amendment Freestyle Friday on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Don't forget that Jay St. Clair is with us in the 1 o'clock hour. Fry J in progress. Yes, he sounded a lot better. We are told that that people that have early onset dementia, they're much better in the mornings, much better in the middle of the day, and unable to hold it together for the duration of the day. So,
look, if we finally beat Medicare.
We finally beat Medicare, Joe says, and that's great news. Joe said a lot of things last night. We'll delve into it. Get your thoughts on it on episode 601. Episode 601 is brought to you on radio at 99.7 FM, on your mobile apps. Stream us anywhere you go. You can find us on a variety of different platforms. Just type in Supertalk 99.7 WTN. You can download our own app at Supertalk 99.7 WTN in your app store and carry us wherever you want to go. And then, of course, Supertalk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. Episode 601, Bell, is entitled as follows.
Matt Murphy reminds you that in Trump's America, dogs and cats live together in unmarried sin.
It's true. I have no idea what... You know what? I don't know why I keep saying I have no idea what your titles mean, because I never know what your titles mean. But that's okay. And
that's the America we're going to have if we reelect Trump. Dogs and cats will be living together without being married. And we'll just continue down this path of self-destruction.
But at least they did not, remember when the media was all over Donald Trump for not having a pet in the White House? And now they refuse to cover the fact that Joe Biden's pet bites. I mean, Joe Biden's...
Everybody.
All of the Secret Service, like he's viciously attacked the Secret Service to the point. And they won't cover that. They covered the fact that Donald Trump didn't have a dog, and now they won't cover the fact that Joe Biden's dog is a vicious beast that seems to need to be put. I mean,
actually, this is the second dog he's had issues with.
He had Major and then Commander, and both of them seem to need to meet Kristi Noem.
Wow, too soon?
Was that too? Yeah, was that too far? Was that too much? I can never tell. It's 12:22 on Super Dog. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy for the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. Dr. Gill wants you to stop by. Dr. Wendy wants you to stop by. Dr. Dominic, Dr. V. They don't wish back pain, neck pain, knee pain, hip pain, any pain on anybody. They don't want you to have pain, but they understand that as you age, as your body grows older, those pains will pop up. What do you do about them? Well, at the Dr. Gill Center, they don't believe in covering up with pills. They don't think it's a good idea to take shots with needles to cover up the pain. And obviously, surgery should always be the last option. Regardless of where your pain is or what your pain levels might be, you owe it to yourself to take a trip to the Dr. Gill Center. It starts with a telephone call and an appointment. And once you get that appointment scheduled, you'll walk in, you'll sit down with one of their doctors, one of their physicians of chiropractic care. They'll talk with you about where the pain originates, how long it's been going on. They'll give you a comprehensive examination, x-rays. They'll go over the x-rays with you, and then they will develop a plan of action to eliminate that pain. And they've got one for you, I promise you that. They eliminated my pain in my lower back and my upper back, and they can do the same for you. The Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief, 615-882-4838, 882-4838. Give them a call or stop by today in Franklin. It's the Dr. Gill Center. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy, and I want to tell you about a great event that's coming up in July. I'm very, very excited about it. It is an event benefiting Men of Valor, which is a wonderful, wonderful organization that we have in our community and throughout our state. The event is the Rudy Kalis Celebrity Golf Classic. Now, you longtime folks in Nashville, you know who Rudy Kalis is. He needs no introduction, an award-winning sportscaster, and he is a fabulous guy and a fabulous friend of Men of Valor. He is a volunteer champion with Men of Valor. Rudy believes in what the Men of Valor mission is, which is simple: to help reconcile men to God, their families, and society. It is a ministry of a hope that gets inside of our prison system and stops the recidivism that keeps people returning to a life of crime and returning to prison. The Golf Classic is hosted by Rudy, but it will be a celebrity list as long as your arm. People like Vince Gill, Derek Mason, Joe Dubin, Kevin Bullock, Kevin Dyson, and so many more. Plus, we'll be doing our radio show out there from noon until 3, and so we would love to see you. Stop by men-of-valor.org. I want you there for any reason, whether it's just to donate or to sign up for the incredible event. It starts 9 a.m. Monday, July 22nd at Hermitage Golf Course. Go to men-of-valor.org for registration and to support the event, and we will see you there on Monday, July 22nd.
A major win for the conservative legal movement at the Supreme Court. And a Middle Tennessee man is pleaded guilty to setting fire to a grocery store 2 years ago. We'll have that story and more at 12:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I told you guys I was just trying to test the hibachi and things got out of control. I've said it 100 times, but whatever. Harper's got the news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Okay, your telephone calls, your thoughts on the debate last evening. Did you watch? Right now, Joe Biden is trying to convince North Carolina that he's just fine, saying that he will win. He intends to win this election. CNN is sticking longer with this speech than I've seen them stick with his speeches for a long time. Obviously, they are attempting, as many on the political left, they're trying to repair this as best they can. Just jip this for just a second if you want to. There, Bell, join this in progress to see what he's saying.
I got to pipe in here real quick.
Right, yeah.
I love the way that he stands there and admits that tariffs will raise prices on the average consumer, but will not admit that corporate taxes raise prices on the average consumer.
Right, because that's different. Corporations need to pay their fair share. Oh, whatever. Get him out of here. Yeah, Donald Trump said if it is a fairly and freely contested election and we count all of the legal votes and we don't count illegal votes, well, sure, I will agree with the results of the election. I don't understand what they don't understand about the fact that Donald Trump left the presidency in 2020 in 2021, I should say, in January of 2021, after he had some serious, as did many Americans, serious concerns about the results of the election in November of 2020. Yet he packed his stuff up and left. I actually heard a liberal commentator make a comment last night that, well, Donald Trump's, his biggest requirement for a vice president is that the vice president that he picks won't certify the results of the election unless Donald Trump tells him it's okay. Like, what planet are you living on? No vice president selected by Donald Trump will be certifying any election having anything to do with Donald Trump. Right? That's Kamala Harris will certify or help certify the results of the next election in January 2025. And whomever Donald Trump picks as a vice presidential selection will be certifying the results of the election in 2029, and Donald Trump won't be on the ballot at that point. Because believe it or not, contrary to what you keep preaching, Donald Trump believes in the Constitution and the rule of law. It is 12:31. We'll get to your calls coming up. Your thoughts on the debate last night. What a incredibly bad performance for Joe Biden. Who's leading the country is the big question, and who will be on the ballot once they replace the guy. We'll talk about it next on Super Talk.
Good afternoon. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. It's 12:31. We've got a partly sunny sky here on Music Row. It's pretty darn hot, 90 degrees. A complete forecast is coming up here in just a little bit. A major win for the conservative legal movement at the Supreme Court. In a 6-3 ruling, the justices have reversed a decades-old rule affecting how courts should handle federal agency regulations. ABC's Stephen Portnoy, he's got more from D.C.
This is a landmark decision upending 4 decades of jurisprudence, a doctrine known as Chevron deference. It was named after the oil and gas company that had a key environmental case before the court 40 years ago. In overturning Chevron, Chief Justice John Roberts says courts should no longer defer to a federal agency's reading of an ambiguous statute. Conservatives have sought this outcome for years, and liberals now worry the ruling could affect thousands of cases in which federal regulators prevailed.
Back here in Middle Tennessee, a local man has pleaded guilty to setting fire to a Kroger store 2 years ago. Columbia Fire and Rescue says 55-year-old Jeff Mealer of Franklin accepted a plea deal in Murray County Court for the June 2022 incident. Authorities said he intentionally set fire to the Kroger on Nashville Highway while the night crew was still inside working. He was charged with aggravated arson, 6 counts of reckless endangerment, and possession of methamphetamine with intent to sell. He's been sentenced to 15 years behind bars. That is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
If you thought last night was spicy, if you thought the debate got a little spicy, just wait until you head over to Savory Spice. They'll show you spicy. Savory Spice has 2 locations to serve. One is in on Charlotte Pike in L&L Market. That's in Nashville. The other is in Franklin, just off the square next to Grace Pharmacy. When you stop in, you'll smell the smells. You know what they do at Savory Spice? This is kind of cool. They have samples. You know, they have little sample bottles of the various spices on the shelves. And if you want to sample it, you can dip some out in your hand, and you can give it a little sniff. You can give it a little taste if you want to. And then when you're done, you just kind of throw it on the ground. They'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. At Savory Spice, that's what they want you to do. They want you to sample before you buy. And buy you will, especially if you know your way around the kitchen. You understand that good spices can make a better meal, and that's what it's all about at Savory Spice, making your food taste more flavorful, better in every single way. So if you have an exotic spice option that you can't find at the regular place, well, what are you doing at the regular place anyway? Get to Savory Spice for all of your spice needs, but they've got those exotic spices as well. They've got something for the newbie in the kitchen, right? It's called Spice and Easy, where they pre-package the spices that you'll need for a variety of delicious meals, and all you have to do is buy the products right there on the bag, take it home, make it, and your loved ones will absolutely love it. Savory Spice. They up your food game by upping your spice game. I would suggest you up your spice game at the one and only Savory Spice. Joe Biden doesn't know his way off stage again. Watching him deliver a speech from Raleigh, North Carolina at 12:38, Supertalk 99.7 WTN. Oh, there, Jill comes to save the day. She's going to lead him off the stage. A very fiery address by Joe Biden that would be damage control. Joe Biden spending a good 10 minutes or so initiating damage control, saying that he was not as good a debater as he's been in the past, but I know how to tell the truth. Now, this was jacked up Joe. This was the one that we thought we would see last night. This is the guy that has had a cocktail or two, not like a cocktail as you would think of it, like a medical cocktail.
Well, meth daiquiri.
Meth daiquiri is a good way of putting it. So Joe gaslighting the United States of America, saying that we've never been better. We've never been doing better. That's not true. Going after Donald Trump from the debate last night, saying, well, he says that we're failing as a nation. Well, we are failing our citizens as a nation. We're failing overseas in foreign entanglements. We're failing at the southern border. We're failing from an energy perspective. We're failing from an inflationary rate perspective. We're failing in the crime arena. They claim crime is down. That's because crimes don't get reported and they don't get prosecuted anymore in major cities, which dramatically affects the crime rates in said major cities. Would you move to San Francisco? Would you move to Detroit? Would you move to Baltimore? Would you move to Milwaukee? Would you move to Minneapolis? Would you move to Boston? Would you move to Philadelphia? I mean, I'm just naming a few off the top of my head. But Joe says, don't believe any of that. That's just garbage. Believe him when he says that America is as great as it's ever been under his leadership and thanks to his leadership. So a lot of damage control going on. A very active and robust Joe Biden. 1240, Supertalk 99.7 WTN. Lee is in Chattanooga with first thoughts during the Libertarian Lunchtime Hour on the debate last night. Lee, what do you got?
Hey, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing well. Wonderful. Nice to hear from you.
Good to hear from you. Listen, at least he was dressed. At least he had his jacket on. I think last week he was on Marine One, and Jill had to come in and help him with his left hand. It was tough even then. So, I think what I wanted to say was I'm glad I'm reveling in what happened last night, but I do want to say that if he stays in the race, Trump has a chance of winning. Now, if he's replaced by, I don't know, Kennedy Jr., Gavin Newsom, Eddie Munster, as I know him, Hillary maybe, if that happens, then people who would normally stay out and just not vote at all can say, well, at least I didn't vote for Trump, but I just couldn't pull the trigger on Biden. They may go out and vote, and then we do stand a chance of not winning this election.
Yeah, my biggest fear, and Lee, I've said it for the last several weeks, my fear is that Joe Biden performs so badly, and I think he confirmed these fears last night, that it is a major consideration amongst the decision makers that they do replace him. And if they replace him, they got to figure out a way that it's not Kamala Harris. My greatest fear, because the Obamas are that cult of personality that some of the Democrats would gravitate to, is that they somehow manage to convince Michelle Obama to run. If they do that, you avoid the black female problem that presents itself with Kamala Harris, and you create that cult of personality, and you drive voters from Trump, African-American voters particularly from Trump, that are gravitating to him because of the condition that they're in, back to the Democrats. That's my fear.
Well, depending on who's pulling the strings behind that curtain, Obama, Valerie Jarrett, whoever it might be, we're never going to know that. I don't know if Kamala would be comfortable under someone like a Michelle Obama. I don't know if she would be comfortable under a Gavin Newsom.
Well, she's certainly comfortable under Willie Brown.
Nice one. We don't have
so sorry.
without a COVID pandemic, without any new CDC guidelines that come in to scare us, without multiple ballot drop boxes and hidden suitcases under tables at 2:00 in the morning, we also stand a chance of having a little bit of leverage, because then that gets us a little bit closer to success.
Well, you hit the heart. Well, and you're hitting the heart of it now. And Lee, thank you so much for the call. Good to hear from you. I was talking with Congressman Gary Palmer earlier today, and Gary's point is similar to mine in that if you believe that Joe Biden is making the decisions, well, that's one thing. But I don't know many people that believe that. And so if you believe that the individuals that are truly making the decisions are behind the scenes, and those that are behind the scenes will determine through donors, through money, and through other measures if Joe Biden continues, they have a say in this. Joe Biden's got a big say in it too, and Jill and some of his inner circle. But those powers that be have a huge say in this. Well, if it's Joe or not Joe, none of what they want to do to America is going to change. The agenda doesn't change. The policy positions don't change. They have the benefit of having a figurehead at the top of the ticket that will do anything that they tell him to do, and they don't care what splatters on this guy. They're behind the scenes. They're in the shadows making the decisions, running the show, and allowing the country to go off the rails on purpose. None of that's going to change, whether it's Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, or whomever's at the top of the ticket. The first thing they have to do is demonstrate fealty to the mission. And the mission was declared in 2009 when Barack Obama, I believe this, when Barack Obama said that we want to fundamentally transform the United States of America, he meant it. And there are some that believe that this is a third term of Barack Obama, and I don't disagree with that necessarily. And there are many that believe that if Joe proves that he's no longer a useful idiot, if he's just an idiot, they'll move on to somebody else. Cameron Smith is joining us in studio. He was at the proceedings last evening watching the show as I was and just slack-jawed in amazement. And I invited him on considering we didn't have him on Wednesdays because he was actually doing my show on Wednesday as I was doing Brian Wilson's. Your initial thought about the debate last evening, my friend?
That's about. That's what I got because I dropped a column early this morning over at the Tennessean saying that Joe Biden failed to meet low expectations. That's the reality. And I think you said this. He needed a C+ performance. He got an F. Folks, believe your eyes and ears. I watched folks in the spin rooms last night try to spin this and say, well, when he had a cold, look at the vice president was like, well, there's 3 years of doing stuff. And one of his former staffers who was on CNN said, well, behind closed doors, he's awesome and amazing. And to which Scott Jennings correctly responded, okay, you're telling America behind closed doors, he's this amazing leader. But when he has to be in public on his feet and answer questions and respond to commentary, he looks lost. Mm-hmm. So, folks, any politician telling you don't believe your eyes and ears, don't believe them.
Scott Jennings was tip-top last night.
He was good.
In a bad arena. He was laying down some truth. And he said last night, and it's something that I'm reflecting on today, that I understand that from a conservative perspective or a libertarian perspective, people that believe the Constitution and the country as it was formed, we feel like last night was a good night because it exposed Joe Biden awful to the greater population. It was awful in this sense. He's not just a candidate for president.
He's the president.
He's the president.
Yeah.
This guy that stood on stage and fumbled and bumbled after 8 days of preparation, he couldn't manage to do better than that last night. That's the dude that supposedly, well, I don't believe he's leading the country, but he's the guy that was elected to lead the country.
So as a former staffer, I can tell you, staff plays a big role. There's nothing wrong with that. That happens to the Federalist Society. Help Donald Trump with judges. We know that. We're appreciative for that. That's great. But you must have a leader at the top who can respond to things.
And I expect, Abraham Lincoln got big props, and there was a book written about him called Team of Rivals, because Abraham Lincoln decided he was self-confident enough that he said, I'm going to take people that have been against me, and I'm going to get them as close as possible to me because I want to hear what they think about my ideas. And then once we go around the table a time or two, I'll make the decision as to where we're going with an issue. I want that in my leader. But at some point, I need the leader to be cogent enough to be able to make that decision. And I don't believe that Joe Biden is.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I've criticized Trump because he likes yes people. He likes people that just tell him what he wants to hear. He's still in charge. I mean, at the end
very
of the,
least, he owns the decision, right?
He's like, I like you to tell me how good I am. Okay, great. But you still make the call. That was pretty clear last night. He was good on his feet. And I've seen this before. When I worked in the United States Senate, there was a senator named Robert Byrd. And he was a big appropriator from West Virginia, was very valuable to that state. And they propped him up. His chief of staff and his team were running everything. He didn't know where he was. And he kept going. And that's where Joe Biden is.
What years were you there? Were you there during Thurman, or was Thurman before you?
I think he was before, because I was 2008. I came in right when Obama came in, and then that's when I started.
I saw Thurman the last year that he was a senator. He was like 98 years old or something like that, and it was frightening.
Yeah,
because he was just oblivious to where he was. I mean, and you see this a lot, particularly in the United States Senate.
Yeah, it was Feinstein. That was the most recent one where it was literally.
She didn't know that she was in the U.S. Capitol at one point.
It was elder abuse.
Yeah,
and I hate that phrase to say, this is elder abuse. But at some point, I realized, because I'd seen Joe Biden before, when I went to visit my grandfather, who had declining mental faculties in a home, basically. That's where I've seen that, and I am not saying that lightly. I'm that concerned.
So he comes out on stage today and he presents, he's only on there for 10 minutes. Jill spoke longer than he did. He's in Raleigh, North Carolina. He's attempting to repair what happened last night. He said, I intend to win this election, yada, yada, yada. I'm in it to win it, yada, yada, yada. Do you believe that there is serious conversation going on today amongst Democrats about figuring out a way that Biden's not the candidate?
Of course. I actually loved what Senator Tommy Tuberville had to say. He's like, you got this, Joe.
I feel the same way.
Yeah, Republicans should be like, Joe, you've been knocked down before. You can get up again. Let's go.
Yeah.
He can't. But
no, we need him to.
He believes that mythology, right?
I will risk the next, what is it? What are we in? June. So July, August, September, October, November, December, January. So 7 months until we get a new president. I will risk the next 7 months to guarantee the next 4 years of what I believe to be a better and more conservative, more constitutional government. What I mean is Joe Biden is the easiest victory here for the Republican Party.
Oh, yeah.
And I've been saying for 2 weeks, you've heard it, you've alluded to it, we needed a C- last night. We needed a D+ last night. We got an FFF last night. And that scares me, because if the Democrats awake to their very serious November problem in Joe Biden, they will find a way to figure it out. These guys are willing to do anything and everything to win. I guarantee it, and they'll do it if they think that he can't get the job done. If there's a possibility that he's the best guy for the deal, they'll do that. But otherwise, they'll find somebody else.
And Trump, I know that a lot of our listeners hate to hear this. Trump's a flawed candidate. Trump has vulnerabilities and weaknesses. He's punching a guy that's defenseless up there. Trump was saying stuff. He could say what he wanted. Biden couldn't formulate a response. And so another candidate comes in, a surprise candidate, big deal.
We'll get to Keith and Mike in a moment. Can you hang around for a little bit?
Of course.
I mean, we've got Jay St. Clair coming on, but I'm very curious to hear you and Jay talk about some of these Supreme Court decisions.
Sure.
Because I know you're in tune. The Chevron thing is a big deal that's getting buried in the rest of the news. And I love talking to Jay about this, because Jay declared that this is a necessity, 15 years ago on my radio show.
Absolutely.
Which is awesome. All right, 52 after the hour. Your call's on the way. It's the Matt Murphy Show, this Friday edition on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
The Supreme Court with a ruling on homeless encampments, and a record travel period is upon us, and a deadly shooting in a Murfreesboro neighborhood. That's all coming up at 1 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Jay Harper, as he is wont to do, just makes me so desirous to go to the news. I think we're going to do it right now. That's right. We're going to the news with Jay Harper. JBC News, we like to call it. We'll get your calls in here in just a moment. Keith, I see you there. We got Cameron Smith hanging out with us. I'm going to go look at his new truck during the news break. And then Jay St. Clair with Fry Jay coming up. I mean, there's a lot going on the Murphy Show on this day after the big debate day that was such a success for so many listening and watching. And thank you so much to Hop Springs, etc. More to come. 2 more hours to go on the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk.
Good afternoon. It's exactly 1 p.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. Scattered clouds, plenty of sunshine, 90 degrees. A complete weather forecast is coming up. Along ideological lines, the Supreme Court has upheld bans on homeless encampments, saying such laws do not violate the Eighth Amendment. ABC's Stephen Portnoy reports.
The High Court says even in cities where there are no beds in shelters, it does not constitute cruel and unusual punishment to fine people with no place to sleep but on the street or in camps. Justice Neil Gorsuch wrote for the conservative majority that a community should have the right to set its own policy for homelessness, and judges shouldn't dictate it. Liberal Justice Sonia Sotomayor began her lengthy dissent by writing, "Sleep is a biological necessity, not a crime."
For many, today is the big 4th of July period getaway day. ABC's Alex Stone says a record number of people are likely to go through airport security checkpoints today.
Airports are crowded. Today is expected to be the busiest day in history at U.S. airports. AAA says the top destinations over the 4th of July period are Seattle, Orlando, and Anchorage. The travel website Hopper says the busiest airports are Atlanta, Dallas, and Denver, which makes sense since those are the big hubs for Delta, American, and United.
Back here in Middle Tennessee, a shooting leaving 2 people dead last night in Murfreesboro in a townhome community. Murfreesboro police received a call for a shooting around 8 o'clock last night, and police were dispatched to Nightshade Drive, just a few blocks away from Scales Elementary School. The police report that both the victim and the alleged gunman died in that shooting. The investigation is ongoing, and the identities of those involved has yet to be released. That is the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy, and you. Thank you for being here. What a day. What a day. What an afternoon so far. We've got 2 more hours to go. We have Friday coming up in mere seconds, and we've got Supreme Court rulings. The Supreme Court has limited obstruction charges against January 6th rioters. It was a 6-3 majority ruling. The Justice Department has overstepped in filing against some January 6th protesters. This is a big victory for some of those individuals that have been overcharged in this case. Obviously, some people need to go to jail for a little bit of time for actions committed on that day, knowingly busting up into the Capitol and causing violence and whatnot. But there have been a lot of overcharges by the Justice Department. The Supreme Court made that decision today. They also made a decision on the Chevron case. We're discussing all of these things with Friday coming up in just a moment. By the way, I used to play a game called Last Thing I Heard Before We Came Back from Break. I used to play it. Remember Andrea Lindenberg, Ani and I?
Yeah.
Cameron Smith is with us, by the way. We're in the afterglow of the debate last night, so he stopped by. You know what? By the way, Bell, you know why Cameron's really here? You know why he's really here? We're celebrating beating Medicare. That's one thing. He's here to show off his new truck.
Yes. Of course.
Yeah, obviously.
When he filled in the other day, I got the deets on it. So
you got the full rundown?
Yeah. So I knew this was going to be the two of you going mano a mano as to who had the bigger chassis.
Oh, he's got my chassis beat.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that. I mean, he's got a bigger chassis than I do. I know what to do with mine a little bit better than he does. He's got a.
This is family radio.
He's the one with 3 kids.
Point Bell.
Well, he might be making some more of them in that truck. I mean, that's nice. It's got a big back seat.
Yeah, it's one of those that you drive and people just get pregnant. I mean, it's wild how that works.
Yeah, if they don't get out of the way, they just get pregnant.
Yep.
Oh, man, there's lots to do. There's lots of places to go. And obviously, we're discussing the debates from last evening. And yes, I started the show today by asking if you saw anything good on television last night. There were a few good things.
There were.
I rewatched it. Does that make me a dork?
I did too.
Did you?
I was writing my column, and I just couldn't believe what I saw. So I went through the after stuff, and then I was still typing, and then they aired it again. And I was like, okay, I need to watch it. Because we were at Hot Springs, since it was loud. It was a very pro-Trump crowd. They were screaming at the screen.
It was like watching a sporting event in front of a bunch of people who were watching the sporting event.
It was. And I wanted to make sure that, my perspective wasn't skewed because everybody was pro-Trump. And it wasn't, because Joe Biden was that bad.
No, I knew that there was something going on because there's a perception about Cameron Smith, and I think it's in some ways unfair, although in some ways it's merited too, because we've had the arguments about it, that you are less enthusiastic about Trump than many other conservatives.
Yep.
And so we go back and forth on that. So when you looked at me 5 minutes into this debate and you kind of shook your head and went, this is bad, I knew that what I was saying was not being skewed by my vision of what I wanted to see.
Well, and you said it. We talked on the way home last night. I said, I have misgivings about Trump. And this is public record. You can look at my columns and see where when he does something I like, I'm like, that's great. When he does something I don't, I'm like, that's bad. But the biggest thing for me was that Trump was basically doing his own thing, but Biden was so scary. There's a lot of people who held their nose in 2016. They said they wouldn't do it again in 2020. Mm-hmm. And now those nose clips are coming back out and folks are saying, I may not love Trump, but that guy's a zombie. And that's bad for America.
Well, we'll continue to break that down throughout the course of the day. From a legal perspective, there's a lot of things going on that are somewhat being overshadowed.
Chevron, baby.
The Chevron case is huge, and I can think of no better person to discuss it than our man on these Fridays. We love him. We need him. He's a Tennessee man. He's my life consultant, my legal correspondent, and my gambling buddy. It's Friday. Get your questions in, 615-737-9986, either through the membersnutrition.com super text line or otherwise. I begged of Cameron to stick around because Cameron's got a legal degree as well, and he's been on Capitol Hill a time or two, and I thought he might have some good perspective. We welcome in the one and only Jay St. Clair to the party. Jay, as I like to do, I start off with a very serious-minded question for you, sir.
Yes, sir.
How you doing, Jay?
You know, Matt, if I were any better, I would be on a cruise to Alaska right now.
A cruise to Alaska.
I like Alaska. It's great.
55 degrees up there right now.
A cruise to Alaska. You know, you surprise me sometime. I thought we would get if I felt any better, I'd be Donald J. Trump. That's what I thought you'd go with today. But you went with cruise to Alaska. I like it. I like it.
Yep. Now, what did something happen last night?
Hey, what did you watch on TV last night, Jay?
I watched a replay of the College World Series Championship game, and it was great.
Jay, I'm a big enough man as a Georgia Bulldog to say here publicly on these airwaves on 99.7 FM in the heart of Tennessee, congratulations and go Vols on your victory. Now, let's see if this Alabama Roll Tider over there has the ability to do the same. Cameron?
Well, Greg McElroy had a little problem with it.
Oh, I saw some of that. Did you see some of that, Cameron?
Greg McElroy?
Mm-hmm. And I love Greg, by the way. Full disclosure, I met the guy. Greg is as down to earth as they come. I met him when I was still in Birmingham. But McElroy, the day after the Tennessee championship, all he did was like criticize the coach. He was like, you don't act like you've been there before. I mean, he was just grumpy. And the next day, to his credit, Jay, and you probably saw this, he apologized. He said, I'm sorry. That was not right. I shouldn't have done it.
No, you should.
Yeah, and I love the way it was a guy apology or a guy apology. Don't say I'm sorry. Well, I'm sorry you feel that way.
Yeah, I love it. It's that time of year. Let's go, man. Let's throw it down. I was actually in an interview where I was interviewing a candidate, and she was talking about how much of a Vols fan she was, and she saw the little A on my shirt, and she's like, oh. And I was like, that's glorious. I needed to hear that. I needed to know that.
Just a little O.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, you're one of those. And I'm like,
know.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, so McElroy said, well, I'm as happy for Tennessee as anybody can be that played for Alabama.
Yes.
That's pretty good. Well, congratulations to all the Tennessee. I know your son and your grandson they've got to be so excited. I know you've got to be a little excited yourself, Jay.
Yeah, no, so you wouldn't know this, Cameron, but my son went to the University of Tennessee baseball camp in 1991.
All right.
And that's how long we've been supporting Tennessee baseball. And so Ron DeMonico was the coach back then. They were pretty good back then, but no.
Oh, well. Hey, that just, Bell, that just went out on us immediately. I mean, like that. So jump back on there. John in Lawrenceburg says, and I imagine this is for you, Cameron, Bama's time is just like Joe's. It's over and gone.
Hey, that's what
Go Vols and Trump.
Hey, wishful thinking. I mean.
Thank you. Are you, all right, Jay, I suspect that somehow Cameron pulled a plug underneath the table here because you're talking about the Tennessee Volunteers, but that's okay. We got you back, and I'm glad we do.
That's okay.
But yeah. So your son was in baseball camp. Chuck was in baseball camp in the early 90s.
Yeah, in 1991, he went to the University of Tennessee baseball camp. So the point is just that we've got a long association with the Tennessee baseball program, and that was just a really good thing.
Well, Jay, I got up this morning, and obviously I stayed up late last night watching the salty tears of the liberals in the aftermath of the debate last evening. But when I got up this morning, let me tell you, one of the first things I saw was the Chevron decision, and the first human being I thought of was you, because you have talked to me about this for years. It was 15 years ago that you made me aware of this Chevron case and what it meant for America and how much better you believed that America would be if the courts would see it a little bit differently. Just walk us through why this is so important.
Yeah, so let me start from 50,000 feet, and then we'll kind of get granular. It was really in the 1930s, man, during the New Deal, that the whole structure of the federal government changed. There used to just be three branches of government, right? You had Congress, the President, and the Supreme Court. Well, they started passing all these laws, and then they started creating all these administrative agencies.
Mm-hmm.
The department now that it goes on forever, but think of things like the Department of Education, the Department of Labor, the Department of Health and Human Services, the Environmental Protection Agency, and they go on and on. And so what's happened over the years is Congress passes these short little laws, and they give all the authority to enforce and interpret those to these agencies. These are not elected people, man. They're George Wallace famously referred to them as pointy-head bureaucrats. And the whole idea behind all this, Matt and Cameron, is that they are they're experts.
Mm-hmm.
You can't leave the states are too dumb to figure out how to govern. They're not smart enough. So we're going to go hire the best and brightest. That was the phrase he used. The best and brightest people that come into the government, and they're going to make the decisions. And we're going to give them all kind of authority. And the one thing the Chevron case did, it gave them the authority to interpret the law.
Yes.
Not to set policy, but to interpret the law. And that's clearly wrong. It's taking away the power of courts. And that's been the law since 1984. And it's been a big, big part of the shift of power from not only Congress, but also from the Supreme Court over to these unelected, pointy-head bureaucrats in the administrative state.
Hey, Jay, I got a question for you. Do you know how many times, roughly, ballpark it, federal courts have cited Chevron?
Oh, wow. Hundreds. Probably hundreds.
Over 18,000 times. 18,000. I mean, it's that big of a deal.
Wow.
Well, a huge, huge shadow, and fundamentally changes the balance of just brilliant when they had this separation of powers concept. We're not going to concentrate too much power in one branch of government. And Chevron and some of the other things around it, it's not just Chevron, but that's a big part of it, has shifted a lot of that. And now there is so much power in the executive branch. And it's not just the president. It's all these administrative agencies. I'll give you a perfect example, man. Title IX, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't know Title IX. Title IX was passed to help women, right? Is to make it equal funding and equal support and so forth for women's sports in college. Well, now under the Biden administration, the Department of Education has interpreted because of sex. You can't discriminate because of sex. Well, that was clearly meant to protect women.
Right.
Well, they've interpreted because of sex to mean transgender. So you can't keep boys from competing against girls. That's how we interpret the law, and there's nothing you can do about it.
And what it does, it creates a dynamic by which the liberal executive branch of government can avoid having to go to Congress and force Congress to pass additional legislation as to where we the people want to see this go with regard to transgenders, boys playing in girls' sports or whatever, right?
No, you said that exactly right, man.
It's bigger than that. It's bigger than even this, because it's going to force Congress to have to do its job and write the laws clearly. And that's going to be a game changer for every administration because, and Jay, you can comment on this too, administrations interpret. And when they know they're getting deference, they basically change the law to be what they want it to be. Nowhere is this done more than in immigration, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now, because of Chevron being rolled back, Congress is going to have to do its job.
Absolutely. That's very well said, Ken.
Jay, you have for years given the example of what we're talking about with OSHA. Right. And how Congress doesn't do its job. It just leaves it up. Describe OSHA and give that as an example of kind of what we're talking about, where Congress cedes its authority over to the executive branch of government.
It's a great example, and it's right, in what I do for a living. So Congress decided, we need to make workplaces safer. So let's pass a law. That's all they did. And here's what the law says, man. There's a few other little things, but here's the substance of the law. Every employer in the United States must provide a safe workplace. We hereby give the Department of Labor all the authority to issue any regulations they want to enforce this law. The end.
What are you doing, Congress?
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
But they do that all the time. They dump it to the agency
because they don't want to do the hard work.
Exactly, and this is where Nancy Pelosi, remember, Affordable Health Care Act, passed the law to see what's in it.
Right.
She's saying you got to pass it to kick it to the agencies to write the law that you have to deal with.
That's very well said, Cameron. And it's, it bothers me for a lot of reasons, but not the least of which is this idea that there truly are the best and the brightest who know more than the average gumps like us. There's this wonderful video of Milton Friedman, who I love.
Mm-hmm.
Love. Nobel Prize winning economist, and they're asking him about that. And you just have to watch the video, but he basically says, well, who are these people? Where did they come from? And how are they so much smarter than everybody else? Well, the answer is they aren't. And I'll tell you the best, most recent example of it, man. The Center for Disease Control.
There you go.
To listen to the experts. Well, look at what the experts did during the pandemic.
They just randomly told us that we needed to be 6 feet apart, and now they're admitting that they just kind of made that up.
And that masks don't work.
The masks don't work.
There's now clear science showing that masks don't work. But that's the best and the brightest. I'd rather have my cousin Bubba make decisions than those people.
Well, your cousin Bubba, he's a pretty smart fella. All right, so we'll find out the real-world ramifications of all of this next with Jay St. Clair. What does this mean? Will it be used retroactively against some of this ridiculous interpretation of what the law does or does not say? We'll find out from Jay. We'll get Cameron's thought on it as well. Plus your telephone calls. Keith will get to you in a moment. Gracie will get to you as well. A lot of questions coming in for Fry Jay on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's 122. So if you're outside of your home and you've noticed some cracking in your driveway, maybe you've even noticed portions of the driveway that seem to be sinking a little bit and they've gotten lower than other portions of the driveway. I was having this happen to me about 8 or 9 years ago when I was in Birmingham, Alabama, and I discovered the polylift system then. USS, United Structural Systems, provides the incredible concrete leveling known as the polylift system. What it is less expensive than concrete replacement because really, once you start dealing with that, you're dealing with erosion underneath the concrete. You're dealing with soil problems underneath the concrete. And there are a couple of ways to deal with this. One is to just destroy the concrete, rip it all out, and redo it. And that is going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars. A much less expensive way is the polylift system. They put a foam underneath the concrete. They put little holes into the concrete. I watched them do it, and it's incredible. And they lift portions of the concrete back up to the level that it's supposed to be. They seal the cracks, and you can walk on it immediately. You can drive on it in 30 minutes. You don't have any unsightly patches or blemishes. It's moisture resistant. It is incredible. It's environmentally friendly. It does not degrade. It doesn't leach into the ground, and it works. And it is so much less expensive than total replacement. Find out more by calling USS, United Structural Systems. They've been keeping homes stable and dry since 1994. Wish them happy birthday. They just celebrated their 30th birthday in Middle Tennessee. 615-488-7855, 488-7855 for USS.
As you can well imagine, political pundits and operatives weighing in on last night's presidential debate. We'll hear from one of them and a Supreme Court ruling impacting some of those convicted for their role in January 6th. We'll have those stories at 1:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Cameron steps out for a moment. Apparently, he has an interview more important than this one. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, except that thankfully we have Jay St. Clair to salve our wounds during Friday.
I think the only reason he came in was to show off the truck, and now that he's roundly beaten you in that department, he's just taken off.
Oh, no, he's inspired me. I've got to get new tires and rims. He's inspired me now. Cameron got a new truck, Jay, and he's all excited about it.
And it's bigger than Matt's.
Bigger than my truck, Jay. I don't know what to say about it.
Out truck you, huh?
Yeah, well, you know how we do down in the South. I mean, I drove your truck over to Tunica, and I had to get me a truck. Now Cameron saw my truck, had to get him a truck.
No, I'm never going to get out trucked again.
Jay, so, I mean, I imagine, and we were just talking during the break, Cameron and I, before he had to step out. So, in the real world, this is the way I see this going, right? So if I have a problem with some, EPA regulatory deal, and I go to the court, before the EPA says, Your Honor, Chevron gives us the authority to make interpretation of this statute, and we say it says this, so we win. And the judge says, well, okay, I guess you win. Well, now, if I'm interpreting this properly, it puts the onus back on the judge to decide who's right and who's wrong, or ultimately kicks it back to Congress to be more clear and clarifying in how they've written the law.
No, you said that exactly right. Now, I think the real world implication is this, man. I think there will be less change from administration to administration on these kinds of points. I think it is going to give the executive branch, the administrative branch, really is what we're talking about, less discretion to interpret the law differently than the prior administration did. They're still going to flex their muscles, but they'll probably get challenged more. I mean, right now, Matt, when, you change administrations, the change in policy is just incredible. Well, it's not just policy, it's like law. It's like them coming in and saying, oh, no, Title VII, even though it was written to protect women, we're now going to use it against women.
Right.
They stand the law on its head. I think there'll be less of that in changing administration to administration, which means Congress should become more important. Now, whether they will be equal to that task, we'll see. They've been dysfunctional for 20 years. Or longer, and we can talk about that at a different time. Well, that's gerrymandering, right? Because both parties has gotten so extreme, they've lost the ability to compromise.
Is this the biggest? I mean, outside of Dobbs, can you think of a bigger United States Supreme Court decision that will impact the size and scope and role of the federal government and the bureaucracy of the government? I mean, Dobbs is obviously huge, but this one is a landmark decision. Would you agree?
Yes. No, absolutely. If you limit it just to the functioning of government, and it is without doubt the biggest decision in decades, probably. And, it's just part of that reversal on the path we've been in really since the 1930s. I mean, it took us 90 years to get to where we are, Matt, and we're not going to change it overnight. But this is a big step in the right direction.
All right, we'll talk about a few other cases and get your telephone calls. Many folks want to talk to our man, Jay St. Clair, on these Fright Jay visits together. It's 1:31, Jay Harper's turn on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Yes, good afternoon. It is 1:31. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. Plenty of sunshine, 90 degrees. A complete forecast is on the way. Worry among many Democrats following President Biden's performance in that debate last night with former President Trump. Biden at times seemed to stumble over his own words or just lose his train of thought altogether. After the debate, Republicans pouncing. Here's House Speaker Mike Johnson today.
There was only one man on that stage who is capable and qualified of being elected president in the next term, and his name is Donald J. Trump. And the current occupant of the White House, President Biden, showed what he's really about. I think on every metric of performance, President Trump obviously did much better.
Now let's turn to a Supreme Court ruling. Some January 6th rioters may see their convictions overturned as a result of today's Supreme Court ruling on the application of a particular count with which they were charged. ABC's Stephen Portnoy, he's got more from Washington.
Only a handful of rioters at the Capitol have been solely charged with violating the law in question. The vast majority have faced other counts. But the ruling could have an impact on hundreds of sentences and cases still pending. Chief Justice John Roberts says to charge someone with obstructing an official proceeding, prosecutors have to tie that obstruction to records, documents, or objects that would have been used in the proceeding. In her dissent, conservative Justice Amy Coney Barrett accused the majority of doing textual backflips.
That is the latest news. We've got that hot weather forecast for you. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
I mean, they sell all manner of handguns at the Glock store, but it's called the Glock store. I mean, they sell a lot of long guns at the Glock store, but it's called the Glock store. They sell accessories and performance parts. They sell clothing. They sell various other items. They sell ammo. They sell anything that you can shake a stick at when it comes to the Second Amendment. But it's called the Glock store. So you know they've got Glocks galore. If it has anything to do with the Glock, as a matter of fact, anything whatsoever, you can bet it's on the shelf at the Glock store. And if it's not there, it's likely in the warehouse, and they'll go get it for you and present it right there in their retail space. Folks, if you've not been, you've got to go. I have 2 Glocks, absolutely love the Glock store. I've got other guns as well, and I have bought other brands at the Glock store for less than I can get them anywhere else. The Glock store is as good as the day is long, and you need to go see them to check them out. Go to GlockStore.com or go to Shoot270.com to find out more about their incredible indoor shooting rooms. Never lanes, indoor shooting rooms. Lenny McGill said, "We don't live a life in a lane. We need to better train in rooms," and that's what they're doing. Shoot270.com or GlockStore.com, or better yet, get out this weekend and go by the Glock store, Airlane Drive, just off of Elm Hill Pike and Bradley Parkway. Glock store and GlockStore.com, just minutes from the airport and worth the drive from anywhere. Getting to your calls and your comments on the Super Text line coming up in mere seconds. It's 1:38. Friday continues on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy with you, along with my best friend, legal correspondent, life consultant, and gambling buddy, Jay St. Clair. I almost said golfing buddy. I almost did, but I decided not to do that. I don't know what.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to putting a couple of those together in West Tennessee here in a few weeks.
We're going to try to figure that out. We're getting that on later on this summer.
Absolutely.
I love it when a judge at the United States Supreme Court uses a word that I have to go look up. And John Roberts taught me a new word in one of these rulings this morning. Mm-hmm. Surplusage. Never heard that one. It's a noun. It means excessive or non-essential matter, especially matter contained in a pleading that is unnecessary or irrelevant. Surplusage. And he did
surplus. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like surplus, but as a noun. And he did it in this January 6th case. And I know that this is being overshadowed by Chevron, and rightly so. But it's important to a lot of folks because a lot of people believe that the federal government has really overplayed its hand with regard to some of the prosecutions as to what happened on Jan 6th. And the Supreme Court in a 6-3 decision held that the Department of Justice just went too far in interpreting statutes regarding, I guess it was obstruction and the obstruction convictions. Jay, I mean, is this a victory for strict interpretation of the law?
It is, but, let's pull back a little bit, too, and make this distinction. There's a big difference between constitutional decisions and statutory interpretation decisions. Mm-hmm. A lot of the cases that we talk about, the big cases, turn on interpreting the Constitution. Well, this case is not about that. And frankly, the Chevron case is not about that either. They actually interpreted a statute in that case. And so, I mean, it's the kind of the meat and potatoes, really, of what the Supreme Court does. They decide many more cases in which they're just interpreting laws passed by Congress instead of interpreting the Constitution. But this case is certainly important to the people that were charged with this crime, man. What's the old saying that you can talk about the unemployment rate all you want to, but if you don't have a job, unemployment rate's 100%.
That's right. You're right about that.
And so the people who are charged with these crimes, this is very important to them. And you know what? There's somebody else that's charged with this exact same crime.
Are his initials DJT?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
So everybody's waiting on the. And I don't know that we're going to get the ruling that we want on the immunity case, but everybody's kind of waiting on this. That's the last big one for the court that I know of. Jay, are there any others?
Can I jump in real quick? I'm just curious about something. What was the lady's name that we had in here that you interviewed the one time, and her husband was on trial?
McCabe. Is that her name?
Do you know off the top of your head, will this ruling impact what happens to him in any way?
Nah, because he struck a police officer. That's what the accusation was, that he actually had made physical contact with a police officer.
Okay, I was just curious about that.
He was a police officer, and he claims that he made his claim is that he made physical contact with the officer to aid the police officer, and what they claim is that his contact was not to aid, but was to contribute to breaking into the car.
So this is relevant to his case.
I think so. I think so.
I was just interested in that.
This is more, Jay, if I'm reading it correctly, that anyone that was on property could be charged with attempting to obstruct an official proceeding. I think that's right.
Yeah, that's right. They were interpreting it as broadly as they can. The language is kind of broad. It says you can't, if you obstruct an official proceeding, then you can go to prison. Mm-hmm. Well, they said, no, that's not what that law means, because that was only a subpart of what it was talking about. And all that really came out of the Enron scandal and destruction of the evidence. And so they said, no, what this law is all about is destroying evidence. And so, no, if you just stand in the doorway, you didn't break this law.
Well, and it's drawing the line between disruptive conduct that is a peaceful protest versus conduct that rises to the level of actually interfering with the goings-on of an official proceeding.
It's not just interfering. You have to interfere with it by stopping some stuff from coming into evidence.
There you go. Okay, that's more specific.
So it's much more narrow than that. It's just an idle statute. And it's prosecutors have tremendous power, man, and judges do too. We saw this in the criminal case in New York. And a lot of these folks in this January 6th thing, man, they're getting overcharged and oversentenced. And this has been a big part of it. This charge has been in just about every one of the cases. So, I mean, to these people, this is a really big deal.
Jay, we got a question from Gracie on the line. Gracie, you're on with our man Jay St. Clair on Friday. What's on your mind, Gracie?
Hey, Jay, I do have a question, and give me a minute to get it out, okay? But you're talking about the federal government bureaucracy overplaying their hand segues perfectly into this. Axios had the best quote from last night with Biden. I'm changing the subject from Exxon, as you can tell. Their quote was, think of all the smart people lying to prop this man up. And I'm thinking, we clearly see he's not running the country. But yet when they're in the sit room making decisions of where, putting resources on foreign soil, whether it be, our equipment or our people or whatever, who's making those decisions? Because I bet you dollars for donuts, it's the Secretary of State or the Joint Chiefs or nobody elected. Yep. How can we address that issue? Because we have several months to go, and this is a bigger issue than who's going to be Trump's opponent.
That's a great question. If we don't believe that the person that was elected as president is truly acting as president, do we, as a people, I mean, I suppose we revert back to our elected representatives and the ability to impeach, Jay? Is that where we're going with this?
No, the only real remedies are impeachment, or, of course, there's the next election, Gracie. Or, the responsible people could do something under the 25th Amendment. They talked about that with Trump a lot, and I've heard a little bit of whispers about that with Biden. And just, they can step forward and say he's not fit to be president. But common, everyday people like you and me, Gracie, we can't directly affect that. The most we can do is just get in touch with our Congress people and ask them to do something. But, Gracie, before you leave, I want to ask you a question.
Oh, I did a bad thing, Jay. I hung up on her. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry. I moved on. I bet I know what you were going to ask. And
yeah, well, no, I love accents, and I love trying to guess where people are from. And Gracie has such a distinctive accent that I just wanted to.
You wanted to give it a go. Well, Gracie, if you're listening, I apologize. Call back, and we'll do that if we have a second or two right at the end of the segment. Question for Jay, 2891 writes in on the membersnutrition.com super text line. How is today's Chevron ruling different than the 2022 SCOTUS ruling, West Virginia versus EPA? I don't know if you recall that one off the top of your head, Jay. I don't, but obviously maybe you do. West Virginia versus EPA, which was also said at the time would help rein in bureaucratic powers. Do you recall that off the top of your head?
No, I don't. I just have to confess to you, man. I don't.
No, I mean, I get it. If the guy writing or the gal writing wants to be more specific about what the decision West Virginia versus EPA came up with, maybe we can.
I can take a guess though. I bet, and it's coming back to me a little bit. There, they did not decide this whole issue of must courts defer to agencies in their interpretation of law. I think what was at issue there is they just said the EPA went beyond the authority granted to them by Congress.
Mm-hmm.
And this court has started to do that a lot. It's called the major questions doctrine. Well, I'll tell you the perfect example of that. It was Biden, but it's really the Department of Education when he forewent $500 billion in student loans. Right, and he said, "Well, I'm just interpreting a law that was passed by Congress." And what they said in that case, and I'm thinking this is more what that EPA case was about, is that no, look, when it's an issue this big, then we're not going to interpret a statute as giving one of these agencies that authority unless Congress clearly and specifically gave them that authority.
Mm-hmm.
called the Major Questions Doctrine. So it's different from Chevron. Chevron just deals with, do they have the authority to say what the law is? What this other case says is, well, you can't just come in and do something big unless Congress specifically gave you the authority to do it.
Gracie's back, Jay, and I had a little finger slip there. So, Gracie, you missed some of the answer, but let me recap before Jay has a question for you, Gracie. You ready? So basically the recourse is that you impeach him through representation, you invoke the 25th Amendment, or you wait for the next election. Jay, do I have that right?
No, you said it just right. And, for common everyday folks like you and me, Gracie, the most we can do is just encourage our elected officials to move toward impeachment. But the real remedy for it is the next election. There's just not a lot we can do before the next election.
What if we're attacked between now and then, though?
Well, exactly. I mean, we just have to, be as we do the best we can, Grace. Elections have consequences. I mean, I'm meaning that seriously.
Yeah, and if it is revealed in the context of being attacked, for example, that it is obvious that the commander-in-chief is not in control, then you have a 25th Amendment option where the cabinet can initiate proceedings by which he is removed from power, or you can impeach him for not doing his duty or high crimes and misdemeanors. Gracie, Jay's got a question for you.
Okay.
Gracie, I love accents. There's not a Southern accent. There's hundreds of them. And you have such a distinctive, beautiful accent that I've just got to know where you grew up. I've learned to ask the question that way. But I'm going to take a guess. I'm from lower East Tennessee. I was born down in Sequatchie County. And I just think for all the world, you grew up somewhere down around where I'm from, lower East Tennessee. It may be Middle Tennessee, but I think it's lower East Tennessee. Am I right?
I was born and bred in Nashville, although I spent a lot of my younger formative years in Williamson County.
That's not bad. That's Middle Tennessee. You're close, Jay.
No, I got it. Well, love your accent, Gracie. My mother's middle name, is your name Grace?
Yes.
My mother's middle name was Grace. Sylvia Grace.
Okay.
And that's the sun as it comes, and I love it.
Gracie, you know how much we love you. Take care, dear.
Bye.
Sorry I accidentally hung up on you a minute ago. That was my bad. Jay, here's the most important question I have for you.
Okay.
What are you doing Sunday?
I'm not sure I've thought that far ahead.
Well, if you have a wild hair and you want to drive north, I have an extra ticket for the Nashville Superspeedway Ally 400 Sunday afternoon.
Well, my race team is in Rockingham, North Carolina this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe that the man actually doesn't have plans when there was a race to be had when you held the ticket. How was that not already set up?
Well, I just got the ticket.
You didn't text him and say, like, hey, man, I just got this.
I think I got it 2 days. Oh, yesterday I was confirmed to have. Okay, it was 2 days ago, but I was busy. So I'm asking him right now.
Well, I got it. And listen, because this race is coming up, they're replaying that prayer from the preacher.
Oh, I love it.
Years ago. And apparently he does the invocation every Friday night out at the fairgrounds. You got to get that guy.
I need to get the dude on. I need to get that reverend on. You're right. I do need to get him on. If you've never, I'm going to play it.
You need to get his wife because she's about as funny as he is.
I'm going to look. Hey, Jay, hold on. If we've got time, I'll tell you what. I'll put you on hold. We're gonna try to do this. I'm gonna go to a break, come back, and if we have a minute before Jay Harper's news, I'm gonna play this prayer for those who have never heard it, because in honor of the Nashville Superspeedway and the Ally 400 this weekend. We're back after this.
A Supreme Court ruling impacting some of those convicted for their role in January 6th, but just how many will it affect? Yes, and we'll have a lawn chair recall story, and a deadly shooting in Murfreesboro takes 2 lives. We'll have those stories at 2 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You know, part of the reason I know that CNN is a garbage network full of garbage people, they just named Macon, Georgia as the 7th best town in America. Macon, Georgia is the butthole of Georgia. Okay, I said that out loud. Jay, you ready? All right, I held you over for one purpose, Jay. You ready?
Absolutely.
All right, let's do it.
Jay,
2011 NASCAR, Nashville, nationwide. This was a nationwide series at the time. Xfinity now, pre-race ceremonies. Let's listen in. You got me over there? Yeah, I can't hear anything. I'm on. We did some. I got it. It's up. It's running. It's going. Okay, here we. All right, I don't know what happened to it. For some reason, I'm not getting audio from my console. It's probably because we did something to record a minute ago, and you've changed some knobs over there. Jay, we'll try it next time, or we'll try it next hour. Thank you, Jay. Love you, buddy. I appreciate you. Let's just go ahead and go to the news, and we'll figure all of this out on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good afternoon. We are coming up on 2 p.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. Yeah, it's hot, sunny, and 91 degrees. Weather forecast for the weekend coming up. A Supreme Court decision today could make it harder to charge and convict January 6th rioters with obstruction. In a 6-3 ruling, the court limited how a law that had been cited by prosecutors could be used. ABC's Pierre Thomas says the Department of Justice has been taking a look at how many cases might be affected and says almost all January 6th defendants were charged with other crimes beyond this statute, and only a few more were convicted only of violating this particular law.
They conclude there are only about 27 people that had only this case as the primary charge against them, meaning about 27 people would actually see some likelihood of their sentence being significantly reduced.
Here's a recall that you may want to take note of. The Consumer Product Safety Commission says about 70,000 lawn chairs are being recalled after some people had their fingers cut off while using them. The recall is for Sinmar Front Gate Resort Collection Newport aluminum chases and teak chases, which have backrests that apparently can unexpectedly descend with force. The recalled lawn chairs, they were sold at Front Gate stores up in Kentucky, Ohio, also Georgia, North Carolina, and Texas from 2014 up until 2023. Back here in Middle Tennessee, a shooting left 2 people dead last night in a Murfreesboro townhome community. The police there received a call for a shooting at about 8 o'clock last night, and police were dispatched to Nightshade Drive. That's just a few blocks away from Scales Elementary School. Murfreesboro police reporting that both the victim and the alleged gunman were dead on the scene. The investigation is ongoing, and the identities of those involved has yet to be released. That is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
What we
Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy for Tennessee Men's Clinic. Gentlemen, let's talk about some personal matters. You know, we have to do that when we talk about Tennessee Men's Clinic because they get up close and personal, and they get to where they can solve the issue that you might be having with your energy levels or with concerns about bedroom activities and beyond. And we want to discuss that because their qualified urologists have been here for over 10 years, helping gentlemen just like you solve these issues and get you back to good life, the normal life, with an energetic attitude and an energy level that maybe you haven't had in years. Men that go to the Tennessee Men's Clinic go so because they don't have the energy at the gym. They don't have the energetic attitude that they had years ago. And let's not believe that this is just something that we have to deal with. At the Tennessee Men's Clinic, they can get you back right. They'll get you tested. They'll check out those T levels and other matters that can repair whatever energy you have lost over the years. And yes, it is all about performance when it comes to the bedroom, and I know that that's a personal matter, but gentlemen, I want you to be as right as you can, and I want that relationship to be strong with you and your loved ones, and that's the way to do it at Tennessee Men's Clinic. TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. 2 locations to serve you, Cool Springs and in Midtown. They've been around since 2014. 10 years now serving our community, and they want to see you. Give a call for an appointment today, 615-208-9090, 208-9090. All right. Here we go. It is hour number 3 of the Matt Murphy Radio Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Pleased you've decided to join us. I'm as happy as can be. I'll tell you what, I'm just about as happy as Joe Biden was last night. Let's.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the.
It's like Joe gets a gold star. You did such a great job. You answered every question.
It's okay to come in second place in the spelling bee, even though there was only one other contestant.
You answered every question. Apparently, Kamala Harris wasn't very happy answering questions last night. She was in the aftermath of the debate on a friendly format, one would presume. Hashtag never see it in. And, and Anderson Cooper had to ask her the question. I mean, what's happening here?
Listen, first of all, what we saw tonight is the president making a very clear contrast with Donald Trump on all of the issues that matter to the American
That's
people.
not what I saw.
Yes, there was a slow start, but it was a strong finish. And what became very clear through the course of the night is that Joe Biden is fighting on behalf of the American people.
Okay, so it was a slow start, but a strong finish, so said Kamala Harris. Yeah, we finally beat Medicare.
It's been decades in the making. We finally beat Medicare.
And I thought that the abortion issue was supposedly the home run issue for the Biden administration, and Donald Trump trounced him on it. He was at, and by the way, can I just, while we're on the subject of CNN,
which is a garbage network
full of garbage people spewing garbage. Don't watch so we don't. I'll watch so you don't have to. But I'm going to do something that I thought I would never do on these airwaves. Did you see my tweet about this?
Probably.
I'm going to give them credit. I'm going to give CNN, Jake Tapper, Dana Bash credit. While some of the subjects that I would have covered perhaps were not covered by CNN, and while some subjects that they chose to cover or highlight or focus on, I perhaps would not have highlighted or focused on, I liked the format. I thought it was well structured, and it was clear and concise, and the candidates themselves understood it so much so that they didn't fall into that trap of trying to overtalk one another, and I'm yelling and you're yelling and we're both yelling because both of our microphones are on.
And I think you projected that it would benefit Trump, and I think that it absolutely did, because it forced a certain degree of civility onto him.
Matt, as far as the moderators themselves and their performance, Tapper and Bash, I mean, what did you think of them as moderators?
I thought they did a good job. Because what I expect is that you formulate the questions. Now, once again, maybe some of the content of the questions was a little bit different than I would have asked versus something that Jay Harper would have asked versus something that, Bel K or you. But you ask a question, they get 60 seconds to answer. The other guy can't interrupt. You finish with the question, then you give the other guy an opportunity to respond. I never felt like they were putting their thumb on the scale. And look, it does me it gives me no pleasure saying this because I can't stand these people over at CNN. But I thought they did a good job. I never felt like they were giving Joe Biden more opportunities than Donald Trump. I never thought they were giving Donald Trump more opportunities than Joe Biden. I thought that there were times, I didn't really understand when those times came about, but there were times where they offered, like if Donald Trump got a question and he gave an answer for 60 seconds and then they finished him up, they went to Joe Biden responded. If Joe said something related to something about Trump, they would give Trump another opportunity to answer before they went on to another question. And that was at their individual moderation discretion. I thought they did a good job.
There were a couple points where he just started, rambling incoherently, and it felt like they were jumping in to I think the result was that it helped him. It stopped the bleeding. Even though I think the reasons they were doing it was because they're broadcasters and there are certain rules. Don't have dead air. Don't, keep it focused. And I'm surprised they didn't do that more. Mm-hmm. That's what surprised me.
And some of the criticism I've seen is that people were frustrated that both candidates, when they were deflecting and really weren't answering the question, that the moderators didn't jump in and say, well, that's all well and good, but answer the question.
Well, I appreciate and I understand that criticism, but I think there takes a certain amount of respect for the intelligence of the audience. We all see what's going on. We heard what question you asked. We heard that they didn't answer it. Respect that as an audience member, I'm going to respond to that in my own way too. So if you ask Joe Biden a question, and a couple of times they did go back in and say, hey, you've got 30 more seconds. There was at one point, I'll give this example because it's the one that comes to mind. There was one point where they asked a question about climate change. Trump really had no interest in talking about climate change, so he went on something else. And Dana Bash followed up by saying, hey, you've got 30 additional seconds. Did you want to say anything about climate change? And Donald Trump said a few more things and then moved on and pivoted to another thing. Largely, we see it. I don't need a moderator to tell me that the individual is not answering the question that you just asked. I heard you ask the question. I'm hearing what they're doing. Just rely on or respect that I have the intelligence to make a decision on my own as to whether or not I like that. That's what debates are supposed to be about, not about the moderators. I can't think of a question. I can't think of a moment And I watched in a group of people, and I went back and I watched most of the debate. I watched about 70 minutes of the debate last night on my own before falling asleep. I cannot tell you of a moment that I had concerns about Jake Tapper or Dana Bash. Now, I understand that they're more liberal than me. I understand that half of America is more liberal than me, at least, probably a lot more than half. So the type of questions that I would ask would not be the type of questions that, Joe Scarborough would ask, for example. And obviously, Donald Trump outperformed Joe Biden. And it's not even close. I think the polling I saw was 60s. I can't believe that 33% of America thinks that Joe Biden did better than Donald Trump. They just hate Donald Trump so much that nothing that he would do would matter. So in the midst of Joe Biden falling apart, in the midst of Joe Biden having a brain meltdown, let it be said the debate format worked. I liked the debate format. The moderators stayed for the most part out of the way, and the candidate knowledge that their mics would be turned off when they weren't being asked the question kept them disciplined, and I think that it greatly benefited Donald Trump. Donald Trump knew, I don't know if he knew that it was a split screen or not. When Joe Biden wasn't being asked a question or wasn't answering a question, Joe Biden stared blankly into outer space. It was weird the way that he was staring into outer space. Donald Trump remained engaged. He kind of, he'd purse his lips. He would squint a little bit. You could tell that he was paying attention.
Nod once in a while.
Mm-hmm. He gave the old head nod when Joe, he gave the head shake when Joe, no. He gave a knowing head nod when Joe brought up the fact that he's alleged to have had sex with a porn star. And many Democrats are going, oh, look, he shook his head because he knows it's true. No, he shook his head because he knew it was coming. He knew exactly where Joe was going. He knew it was coming. Also, the suckers and losers, Donald Trump destroyed him on suckers and losers.
Yeah, I mean, it started with the head nod, and the thing is that's been known to be a fallacy for years now, if not months, if not years. And John Bolton, who hates Trump, hates him with the passion, has come out and said, I was there. That was never stated.
It was General John Kelly that said that he said something along those lines. Kelly hates Trump. Trump fired the guy as his chief of staff. I think it's John Kelly. I think I have that right. If I have it wrong, somebody on the membersnutrition.com super text line will correct me. Kelly is his last name. One guy out of 19 people. 19 other people were standing there, and none of them said that they heard it. As a matter of fact, several have said, I know emphatically that he did not say. Why would he say that to a bunch of generals at a military cemetery?
And if he had said that, that would have been so offensive to them that you would be hearing about it from every corner.
Or at least from more than one person that happened to have been a fired person who was angry at Donald Trump for his own variety of reasons.
Do we know the formatics for the September debate? Is it going to be like this?
I hope.
But they haven't announced yet.
It's ABC, so it's a little bit different. I mean, do you honestly believe that there will be a September debate with Joe Biden in attendance?
You know what? Remember when Reagan, I think it was Mondale. He was debating Mondale, and he had that atrocious debate. And
the first one didn't go well.
Nancy, went ballistic, and he came back and just rallied in the second one. It's almost like Biden's in that situation where he's just done so badly that they almost need the second debate to save his ass.
Well, I mean, if he's there, if he's still the candidate, he'll debate again. I just don't know if he's still the candidate in September.
Well, if he is and he doesn't debate, that's almost like him giving up.
Yeah, if he is the candidate, if he's declared the nominee, and there's a lot of things that have to go into him not being the nominee, but if he's still the candidate, he has to get back on stage. He has to go back out there and repair some of this. And you can expect that he'll be jacked up Joe this time around. He was not last night.
Which is what we got this morning with all the damage control they're trying to do with this North Carolina speech.
They jacked him up for about 10 minutes where he gave a speech. Jill Biden gave about a 12 or 14-minute speech, and Joe gave about a 9 or a 10-minute speech, and he was all fired up, and it was just a list of repairing the things that he could not do last night.
Yeah, it was
just embarrassing.
I monitored that speech, by the way, and it was just a continued repeat of things that had been debunked. He in the speech in North Carolina, he went into the whole suckers and losers thing again, and blah blah blah. They just continue. Even though these things get debunked, they just continue to regurgitate this stuff, and nobody really challenges them.
Well, I mean, the mainstream media kind of in the bag a little bit for them, so they're not going to challenge them, and it is up to you. The Democrats are depending on the stupidity of their voting blocks. They depend on their voting blocks hating Donald Trump more than they care about the truth, hating Donald Trump more than they care about where they are in their economy, their own personal economy, hating Donald Trump more than they care about the illegal immigration flood that's coming across our southern border, hating Donald Trump more than they care about our energy crisis, hating Donald Trump more than they care about foreign entanglements. They depend on that and believing this nonsense. They keep saying it, and it just flies all over me, and I let it happen, and I shouldn't. This idea that Donald Trump, and he said it right at the end of the speech, the biggest issue in this campaign is that Donald Trump wants to destroy democracy. I want to save democracy. Like, what? What are you even talking about, Joe? Donald Trump left.
And if that was
left.
even possible for the president to do that, then that's absolute proof that the presidency would have way too much power.
No question. All right, let me see if I can do this again before we get away from it too far. This is Pastor Joe Nelms from the Family Baptist Church in Lebanon, Tennessee. This is a prayer that Joe, this weekend at Nashville Superspeedway, you can go if you want to, by the way. I got an extra ticket.
Really?
Yeah. You want to go?
Sounds cool.
LI 400. You and, you can pick your favorite boy. Or if you don't want to, do a Sophie's Choice kind of thing, just you. It's me and my good buddy Kerry Adams, and I got an extra ticket.
You want to wear overalls?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, we can get wild.
You got an extra pair?
Dude, just tell the three of them, whoever is able to wash the most of your truck, whoever does the most volume on the truck, they get to go.
Hey, listen, the last time a kid tried to wash my truck or wash my car was when I had the Passat brand new, and they washed it with a brick.
A brick?
That's awesome.
A brick.
What?
Kettner was 4.
What?
The Middle Beast was 4.
What are you
And he
talking
took
about?
a brick.
Like a brick?
A brick, and he was scrubbing it to clean it.
Clean that paint right off. Dude.
Yeah, he did. Got it real scrubbed.
Get right down to
He was being helpful, Daddy.
Right down to the metal.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's hope that we see some of that. If anybody knows where Pastor Joe Nelms is right now, please get him to call this radio show before 3 o'clock. I had forgotten about this. From Family Baptist Church in Lebanon, Tennessee, at the Nashville Superspeedway in 2011 during what was then called a nationwide race. It's now called an Xfinity race. I hope that this comes through this time around. Here's Joe's prayer. And, of course, no, wait, hold on. That's on me. That's on me. I got it. All on. Stand by, everybody.
Things give thanks.
Okay.
So we want to thank
All right,
you tonight for these mighty
just back it up.
Father, we thank you tonight for all your blessings. You said in all things give thanks. So we want to thank you tonight for these mighty machines that you brought before us. Thank you for the Dodges and the Toyotas. Thank you for the Fords. And most of all, we thank you for Roush and Yates partnering to give us the power that we see before us tonight. Thank you for GM Performance Technology and the R07 engines.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for Sunoco Racing Fuel and Goodyear tires that bring performance and power to the track.
Yeah.
Lord, I want to thank you for my smoking hot wife tonight, Lisa. My 2 children, Eli and Emma, or as we like to call them, the little E's. Lord, I pray you bless the drivers and use them tonight. May they put on a performance worthy of this great track. In Jesus' name, boogity, 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 amen.
That is the best opening prayer to any race ever in the history of it.
That's a rip of Talladega Nights. It clearly is.
That's Joe Nelms.
It's great. It was great. I'm not saying it's not great, but the Smoking Hot Wife, that's from Talladega Nights.
Yeah, obviously he was reflecting on some of the things going on at the time.
But the fact that's real.
Yeah, that's
makes
Pastor
it awesome.
Joe Nelms from Family Baptist Church in Lebanon, Tennessee, saying, "Thank you, Lord, for my smoking hot wife."
And that's what you want, man.
Amen. Come on out with us.
All right.
I'll be, and anybody going out to Nashville Super Speedway, if you want to say hello to me, I'll be the guy in the hat. It's 23 after the hour on Super Talk. I'll tell you who else believes in the United States of America, and that's J.K. Brister with U.S. Pest. I love J.K., I love Erica, and I love what they've done with U.S. Pest. Since they bought the company years ago, they've grown it in Middle Tennessee because they do what they say they're going to do. They don't charge you when they say they're not going to charge you. When it's a free consultation, it's a free consultation. They don't try to upsell you on things. They just want to get rid of those communist bugs that are inside of your home, and they are communists. Let me tell you, those bugs want to come in and take some of what's yours for themselves. They want to take up your property. They want to settle in. If it's termites, they want to chew the thing to the ground. I mean, whether it's on your property or inside of your home, you need to alert yourself to what's bugging you inside of your house and get rid of it with U.S. Pest. I encourage you to call them today and say, God bless America, get rid of these bugs. These commies are invading my home. U.S. Pest Protection offers a free pest inspection. Call them at 590-1260. That's 590-1260, or online, uspest.com. Tell them Murphy sent you to uspest.com.
Today expected to be a record-setting travel day and another FAA investigation into a mishap involving a Southwest Airlines flight. We'll have those stories at 2:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Jay Harper. Keith, I owe Keith something. Keith, I'm going to give you a bottle of water and an ink pen used by me because Keith has been holding for an inordinate amount of time, through Friday, as a matter of fact. He wants to talk about the debate. He's up in Clarksville. Clarksville. Cameron Smith is with us as he's settling in on this Friday. I like you in on Fridays. It's good. I like casual Cam.
Chill,
you're
man.
You're not in trouble over there, are you?
Over here? Where, me?
I'm just asking.
No.
We were just talking off air.
Sometimes my wife hears about my plans on the radio.
I got you into trouble.
And apparently, you're supposed to talk to your wife before you commit to things on the air. Who knew?
Cameron said that, Justine, if you're listening, God bless you. I'm sorry that you have to put up with all of this.
Yeah, me too.
Got a lot of testosterone in your house.
A lot happening.
And she said that I was like, come on, you should go to the debate. You should go to the debate. This is Wednesday.
Yeah.
I'm like, you should go to the debate. And you're like, oh, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. Hot Springs, yeah, that sounds like a good time.
Fun.
And it was fun. But you got home.
Then I went home and I said, sweetie, I think, I'm going to go join Matt and the guys at this debate watch party. And she said, I know. And I said, what? And she said, I heard it on the radio. I'd like you to talk to me first. And she was very kind about it. She wasn't upset, but she listens.
So
I got to be careful.
So you want to go Sunday to the race with me?
I am going to withhold commitment until such time as I speak to my bride.
Keith, thank you so much. I owe you a bottle of water and an ink pen used by me. You've held on for so long, and I appreciate the patience, sir. I'm going to give you the floor and just let you have at it.
Well, no problem. I've just got a couple of things. I've been listening off and on all morning, but I don't think there's a doubt last night was a crap show, for lack of a better word, for Joe Biden. I think it was a setup by the Democrats, not the Democrats, but the Democrats. And I think there's not a doubt that given a fair election, Donald Trump is going to walk through this. My question is, what are we doing to make sure, 2020, come on. Can you look at 2020 and say that was not put on? That Joe Biden really beat Donald Trump?
Sure.
Are people that naive that they think Joe Biden actually won?
Well, here's what I would encourage us to do. I would encourage us to get ourselves at the polls now in 2024 to make sure that we have that our local executives within the Republican Party have enough volunteers or enough people that can assist in watching the polls and making sure that everything's contested fairly. I don't think it does any. And Keith, I understand where you are. I'm not poo-pooing you. You waited a long time to make your comment. I don't think it does anybody any good to relitigate 2020 in 2024.
Well,
we just need to make sure that 2024 doesn't happen at the same way. Yeah.
Agreed, but I got a question. I think that Joe Biden is a joke.
Sure.
But who is pulling the strings? And Joe Biden is the devil we know. So it might be better to leave him alone if we think that we can beat him rather than pull him out.
Keith, I've been saying this for 2 weeks. We needed a C- last night from Joe Biden or a D+. We did not need the F that we got because we want, if you are a conservative or a libertarian, if you believe that we need a better direction in this country. If you're a Trump guy or gal, or if you're simply a Republican guy or gal, then you want Joe Biden on the ballot.
Yeah.
He's the best thing we've got going for us in November.
Here's my last thing, and I'll leave you with this. Has anybody thought about the dynamics of if we try to push the 25th Amendment, then if we're able to remove Joe Biden, Kamala Harris becomes the president. Does she appoint a vice president, or does Mike Johnson assume the role of vice president? Because my understanding is third man on the poll is Speaker of the House. If we could get Joe Biden out, get Kamala Harris in, and that's a lot to do in 4 months, but get Kamala Harris impeached, wouldn't Mike Johnson, in essence, be the president at that point?
Man, you got a lot. Election? We got a lot to do before November if we're going to do that.
You better hustle.
We got to get going.
I'm saying 4 months. 4 months is not much time at all.
No,
but
Kamala.
Mike Johnson be president?
No, if when Richard Nixon resigned, Gerald Ford became. Did Gerald Ford appoint a vice president? I don't think he did. I need to look back into that to see what happened.
I would be surprised given this proximity to the election.
Yeah, Keith, I'm going to look into what happened for the vice presidency. I want to say that it was
Matt. If I remember right, Spiro Agnew got in some trouble. He quit, and
Rockefeller, right?
Didn't Nixon appoint Gerald Ford? Ford was never elected.
No, Ford wasn't elected to anything but the House of Representatives. So I think Ford was replaced. Agnew left, and Ford came in. You're right, Jay. Ford came in as a replacement, and
then along came Rockefeller.
I just don't know what the appointment process was like. Did it have to be approved by someone? We're going to look into that while Jay does the news. It's 32, almost 33 after the hour on Super Talk.
Hey there, good afternoon. Coming up on 2:33, I'm Jay Harper. This is, a pretty sunny day here on this Friday. We've got a 92-degree temperature on Music Row. We'll get you a forecast here in just a bit. The TSA expects today to be the busiest travel day ever. ever at U.S. airports. Here's Alex Stone, who's on the scene.
Under 100 flights have been canceled today. That's actually pretty good for a major getaway day. They're peppered around the country. No one U.S. airport is getting slammed, and many are because of problems in London. Flights that are coming from or heading to London. United has the most canceled flights, and it only has 14 flights canceled. That's less than 1% of United's schedule.
Well, this story may have you giving second thoughts to hopping on a flight. The FAA and the NTSB, they're launching investigations after a Southwest Airlines flight took off on a runway that was closed.
Southwest, are you on frequency?
When Southwest Flight 4805 took off from Portland, Maine on Tuesday morning from runway 29, not only was it on a closed runway, it almost hit an airport ground vehicle that was still on that runway. Air traffic controllers can be heard in this audio from liveatc.net warning the pilots.
And just so you know, there is a vehicle on the runway.
But the tower could not get in contact with the pilots. The plane later landed safely in Baltimore. The NTSB and FAA are investigating.
That is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
I met a man last night at our big event at Hop Springs that told me that he knew Brink Fiddler well. He said, I taught Brink Fiddler everything that he ever knew. He worked with Metro Nashville Police Department in some of their exercises back in the day. And so I say, I salute you, sir, because if you taught Brink Fiddler teaches everybody now. Defend Systems is where it's at. If you own a business, if you're the decision maker at a church or at a school, and you're concerned about this dangerously developing world, well, you should be. I'm not here to scare you. Brink's not here to scare you. The likelihood that you will go through some sort of workplace violence is very low. The likelihood that you will go through an active shooter situation is lower still, but it's not zero. That means that hope is not a plan. It is time to get trained with Defend Systems. You know, defend actually means something. It means deter, evade, fortify, evaluate, notify, and defend. And you go over those concepts, those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 concepts during the course. For management teams, they are great. For your employees, they're great as well to talk about active shooter situations, what to do, what not to do, site surveys, emergency and intruder action plans, rapid response medical, all customized to your facility. Give them a call today. Brink Fiddler and Defend Systems. They can provide planning when hope is not an option. 615-236, I should say, 6484. 236-6484 or defendsystems.com. Final opportunity to offer thoughts on the debate that was last evening and what will come of it. I appreciate Keith's thoughts, and we've kind of gone over it during the break. Cameron Smith is joining us. He's really here to show off his new truck. Dodge Ram, right?
True.
Ram tow.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Cam Ram.
Yeah. It's awful. Oh, the Cam Ram and Murphy GMC.
Murphy GMC. I just told you that the crimson and white part next to each other look
Shut
really
up.
good.
No,
really
that's
good.
not crimson. My truck is not crimson. It's a candy apple red.
Okay.
I'll tell you a quick story. So, longtime SEC football watchers, viewers, and listeners will remember the name Jim Fife. He was a beloved name for the Auburn Tigers and the football faithful. And I worked with Jim for years down in Montgomery for several years. But before his passing, he died way too soon. I think it was I want to say he was in his mid-50s. He had a brain aneurysm and passed away. Voice of the Auburn Tigers prior to Rod Bramblett, and Rod Bramblett tragically passed away as well. So Jim won a car at a golf tournament. Jim was a horrible golfer, but he won. He got a hole in one. It was one of those, holes where the car and Jim stopped playing the tournament and said, "I want my car." And it was and I wasn't there, but Doug Amos, his radio partner, told this story. It was great. He said, "I was there." He said, "Jim said, I want my car." And they're like, "Well, no, you fill out some paperwork. You go to the dealership. You're not going to get that car." He goes, "I want that car." And it was a crimson red, like Chrysler LeBaron or something. And Jim won the car. I don't know if they eventually gave him that car or not, but he won the car. And he drove the thing with because he was Mr. Touchdown Auburn, right? And so he had TDAU, a custom tag on the back. And I think he loved it. He loved it because Bama fans would go, "I love that crimson." It's not crimson, it's cherry red. And so, no, it's candy apple red. Candy apple red. He would get so frustrated. And I know deep down somewhere he loved it, but
oh yeah, of course.
So I say all that to say, Murphy's GMC is candy apple red.
Okay. Can we just agree? We were talking about Jay, and we were talking about the Vols, and you're Bulldog, and I Roll Tide. Can we just all agree that the Aggies are weird?
Yeah, they are.
Let's just
let's
find that common ground.
A lot of weirdos.
A lot of the hand waving and stuff they do. They don't
have cheerleaders. They have yell leaders. And a lot of dudes doing it.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
A lot of things.
Apparently at that, Kyle Field, before they repaired it, they, and I have to have a little bit of respect for some of their deals that they do. Like you're not supposed to sit down during the game.
Right.
And they would sway, and the stadium, they do this thing where they're all standing up and they all sway one way and then sway the other way in unison.
Yep.
And when the entirety of a football stadium sways, believe it or not, the stadium sways.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, the concrete sways. So apparently you could feel this in the press box far greater than anywhere else in the stadium. And they had signs printed and posted that it is perfectly normal for the press box to sway during the games because the press people of the visiting teams would freak out because they thought that the press box was about to fall.
I just, that level of choreography,
when they do the whole midnight yell practice.
That's like the guy that you see in like a dark alley that's kind of pale and just grinning at you. That kind of, I don't know. Just doesn't set right with me, those Aggies.
I know. It's almost like a fan base that almost treats a head football coach as some sort of demigod.
That would be weird. I don't know what that's like.
It's what 6 national championships gets you, right?
Yeah. And then you could have an office above the new coach. Can you imagine that?
I guess if you're Kalen DeBoer, while we're talking football, let's talk football because it is football season now, right?
Yeah.
It is.
We're there.
No. But I don't know what you're supposed to do.
Imagine you're the next Republican in the White House, not Trump. And then Trump has an office.
Like 2029, A Republican wins election. Trump's out of the office. He did a great job.
He's great longevity, all the best longevity. He's in the old executive office building looking down on the White House.
I'm watching you.
I'm watching.
I see you over there. I know what you did. Don't move that.
Right.
I put that there for a reason.
That would be intimidating.
It would be weird.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening.
It is.
But for those who don't know, Nick Saban, after retirement, stuck around. And, he's like coach emeritus.
Yep. He's going to be announcing the game and coaching it simultaneously.
You guys a little nervous?
Yeah, but it's the first season in a long time where if we perform at a high level, everybody's going to freak out and get super excited. If we lose 3 or 4 games, people are like, it's the first season of a new guy. But, man, if he does well.
I think everybody kind of expect, 9-3 would be something where Bama fans would be going, okay, that's fine. New first year, whatever. You think there's a little bit of a freak out if it's like 8-4?
No.
7-5?
If it ends up being a break even or losing season, I think people will be like, oh man, that Pac-12 to SEC thing. But conversely, he loses 2 games or less, we're like,
it's on like Donkey Kong.
We got this.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I hear you. All right. So here's what we found out I think it was Kevin's call. Prior to the 25th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, a vice presidential vacancy would just remain vacant until the next presidential election. After the 25th Amendment, that gave, I just read it, so I should be able to remember it. The president has authority to appoint a new vice president, and it has to be confirmed by Congress.
Yes.
Right? You read the same. So in the case of Richard Nixon and Spiro Agnew was accused of some malfeasance or whatnot, and we thought, boy, this is going to be the biggest scandal of the Nixon presidency, and oops, turns out not so much.
Hold my beer.
Spiro resigned, and he appointed Gerald Ford to take his place, and Gerald Ford was beloved by his House of Representative colleagues, and so he was confirmed by the Congress of the United States to be the vice president. So Gerald Ford was the first individual to hold the presidency to never have been elected to any statewide or national office. He was never elected to, obviously Donald Trump was never elected to anything before he became the president of the United States. But prior to that, Gerald Ford was never elected even to president of the United States. He just was appointed to the presidency, and he was appointed to the vice presidency. All he had won was his House of Representatives seat.
But we don't have, the 25th Amendment doesn't allow sort of this general exercise of the 25th Amendment. It's the vice president together with a majority of basically the cabinet. And so these are all folks that have loyalty to Joe Biden. So the likelihood,
it would have to be really, really.
Y'all remember
it would
this?
have to be worse than what we saw last night.
Well, y'all remember this with Trump. That they were like, well, we may need to exercise the 25th Amendment. And no, your cabinet's your people.
Right.
The odds that, no.
You have to be, it has to be legit bad.
Well,
I think it's legit bad. But the partisanship.
It would have to be so bad that it forces their hand.
Yeah, they would have to do it. They're not going to do it.
Put it this way. Last night with the debate, the exit polling, the flash polling they do, showed that about 1/3 of the people said Biden won that debate. Well, no rational human being watched that and was like, yeah, clearly. And then the focus groups, because I'm a dork, I'm watching these, and the focus groups are like, well, he had a rough night. But, I'm basically going to vote for him anyway because I hate Trump. And so think of it this way. That's the floor. Like 33%, 30%, somewhere in there. They're not going to ever even consider
anybody else.
No,
if Joe Biden was weekend at Bernie's dead.
Yes.
Those are single issue voters that only care about the fact that we beat Medicare.
Yes.
Can we give it one more time? Can we get that? Finally beat Medicare. And that wasn't even, I don't even think that was his worst moment last night.
That was my happiest moment because Trump was confused. Trump was like, what? Yeah, you beat it to death. Okay.
This one was pretty good too. When he
look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in. They talk about that, but here's the deal: there's a lot of young women who are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters, it's just ridiculous, and they can.
What?
Yeah, that's what
And that was him answering a question on abortion, by the way.
Yes, I quoted that.
And so he was asked a question about abortion, and you have to believe that smart people, or at least smarter people around Joe Biden, are like, what are you doing? Why are you turning what should be a strong suit? They consider the abortion issue a strong suit for them. I don't, but they do. Why are you turning a strong suit into... Why are you talking about our weakest point, which is immigration? Why did you bring that up? Why are you bringing up the girl that got raped? And why are you saying that young girls are being raped by their sisters?
By an immigrant coming in. They talk about that. But here's the deal. There's a lot of young women are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters.
Their brothers and their sisters.
Yeah. He clearly doesn't know where he's going. He's talking, but he has no end game.
He's just babbling. And I don't want to make too much fun of it. I don't want to be accused of making fun of the subject. Obviously, rape is a very, very serious subject. But Joe Biden's just absolutely babbling.
But how about, like, you and I, you looked at me last night when we were watching the debate, and Trump, he said, I want absolutely immaculate clean water. I absolutely want clean air. And we had it. We had H2O. We had the best numbers ever. And I look at you like, what is he talking about?
It's the best water. It's the greatest water. We love that water. It was super water. You drink the water, and it was like you're energized.
Right.
If
It
Joe
tasted
had
better
some of
than it
my
ever had.
water, he wouldn't look like an idiot.
Yeah, and Joe Biden had that, right? Like, he had that opportunity to be like, what are you talking? Instead, he decided to talk about HBCUs and said they've built these laboratories and the like. Any black student is capable in college and doing any white student can do. And I'm like, what?
It's just very odd. All right, we're late. It's 2:52. We'll check in as time allows with Brian Wilson and The Drive coming up in just moments on Super Talk.